Hello, welcome back again. This is Archaeology from the Ground Down Part 2. May have to divide this into two parts as well. If so, this will be A. As this video continues on now, the focus is going to move to a lot of the developments in archaeology that happened in the 19th century or the 1800s. Well, one of the questions Herschel Shanks raises to Bill Deaver is there appear to be more spectacular finds in the 19th century than the 20th century. Why is that? Bill Deaver says because modern techniques are slower, they move more carefully, so perhaps since we're moving less dirt, soil, we find less of the spectacular inscriptions. Well, perhaps. But at any rate, there was an amazing amount of inscriptional evidence and major finds of the 19th century. And so the video has an overview. This PowerPoint is to supplement that. Give you a little more detail that they don't give you there. This is the black obelisk of Shalmaneser III. This is housed in the British Museum. You can see it here. It's a rather large stone stele or obelisk. It stands probably about 6 feet high, roughly, and probably about 18 inches to 2 feet wide. What's really caught people's attention is you can see there's these different panels here. One of these panels, shown here, and I think I have it larger on the next screen, shows this man kneeling down before this man. This man is the king of Assyria, and this is the king of Israel. So not the kind of thing you'd want to advertise back home. But we see that there's a lot of, in the later periods, there's a lot of interconnection between the Assyrian records, the Neo-Babylonian records, and so forth, the Persian records to some extent, with the archaeological record and the record of the Old Testament, the later Old Testament. Oh, this helps us set the date. This is Jehu, king of Israel, dates to about 841. This is a depiction of it with the cuneiform writing on either side, the black obelisk of Shalmaneser III. Basically, this shows that the king of Israel is a vassal. He is beholden to the king of Assyria. Basically, we might call it in modern day jargon, this is protection money. He's bringing goods in an annual manner to the king to show that he is submissive and will not be rebelling. So this is what it says. I'll let you read that for yourself, but the kind of things he brings: gold and tin and wood and silver. Here is a close-up showing the things that they're carrying. It's these kinds of depictions that give us a good indication of what material looked like at the time. That is, carrying ingots of metal here, and vessels here that perhaps contain some of the other things, buckets, the wooden staves or poles, and so forth. You can also notice the kind of dress that they're wearing, kind of shoes, hats. These are all the details that we can gain from this sort of ancient artwork discovered by archaeology. We'll leave that behind and move to another very important find, this time from Egypt. It's called the Merneptah stele. This is a Merneptah stele. It's the earliest non-biblical reference to Israel. There is a determinative, that's a indication before the word, that denotes Israel as a people rather than a nation. This is a very large stone. I would say this is in the museum at Cairo. I took some pictures of it there. I don't know if I was supposed to, but I did at any rate. And they're all for educational purposes, of course. But I would say it's probably about 12 feet high, maybe more, and 6 feet wide, maybe 7 feet wide. It's a very large, dark stone. And on it, of course, here is what it says. Of course, the mentions a lot of towns you might mention: plundered Cana, taken slaves from Ashkelon, conquered Gezer, and I have decimated the people of Israel. Okay, and this is all from the reign of Merneptah. A lot more we could say about that. One of the things I would say, sometimes people say, well, if this is the earliest non-biblical reference to Israel, and in fact, it is the only reference to Israel in all of Egyptian records. Sometimes people are very surprised at that. Why wouldn't the Exodus been mentioned? In fact, I don't find that problematic at all. In fact, if we found a reference to the Exodus and the events that happened that correlated to what was in the Bible, I would probably be suspect of it. I'm sure other people would be, because the Egyptians never record that they're defeated, and they're certainly not going to record that Hebrew slaves could somehow manage to leave and that the Egyptian army failed to stop them and were defeated. You don't find that kind of record there. These are official records, and so they portray always the king, Pharaoh, is always victorious. Here's the Hammurabi Law Code. Hammurabi Law Code, again, another important law code and reference. There are a lot of parallels between this and the biblical records. Some have tried to compare this with the Ten Commandments. But certainly if you look at these laws and compare them to the Ten Commandments, you see that there is a difference there. The Ten Commandments are much less harsh in some regards than Hammurabi's Law Code. It's in the Louvre. It was found at the city of Susa, and here is the depiction of it here. Here is the picture of that. Hammurabi was a great warrior and king. He was famous for his law code, 282 strict laws, and you can find some of those laws online, as you see there. Some of them have to do with building materials. Some of them have to do with the way that people would interact with, say, birth, inheritance, marriage, criminal law, all those sorts of things. So I would invite you to take a closer look at that. And here you can see me standing next to it. It's up on a little platform. It's probably, like I said, maybe 6 feet high. This one's probably 18 inches, 2 feet wide. Lex talionis, the law of the claw. In other words, they seem to be very harsh laws. You get the idea, the eye for the eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's definitely mentioned here. In other words, if I knocked out your tooth, then you could knock out my tooth. That is inherently fair, I guess. We may not like it, but it is equitable, at least, right? If I knock out one of your teeth, you knock out one of my teeth, we're even. Eye for an eye, similar kind of idea. And really what this does is it sets limits. It sets limits as to what can be done to someone, because we definitely see two distinct social classes here. The upper class will be paying a fine rather than the corporal punishment. Part of that has to do with the idea, as my mother used to say, you can't get blood out of a turnip. If a person doesn't have the money, there's no use charging them a fine. You see, they can't pay the fine. Why charge them the fine? So, and it does set limits. In other words, if I was a very important person, somehow you caused my tooth to be knocked out, and you were not important, I might do much worse to you than just having your tooth knocked out. Might actually put you to death. This actually sets limits that way, even though they seem pretty harsh to us. Another very important record here is the Moabite stone, or sometimes called the Mesha stele, or the Mesha inscription. This was found in Jordan at the city of Deban. As you can see there, 1868. It's now also in the Louvre of Paris, and it parallels the events that are going on in 2 Kings 3:23 through 25, where the Israelites defeat the Moabites and so forth. So you'll have to take a look at that. Here is the passage in Kings. Mesha is talking about how powerful he was, And so King Joram sent them out from Samaria and to Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and so forth. I won't read it all to you, but you can look at that. And here is another passage in Kings, 2 Kings 3. And here is what the inscription itself has. Mesha, ruler of Moab, and mentions Omri of Israel. So again, a lot of parallel here to what's in the Bible, a lot of background perhaps. We can find out a little bit more about Mesha. But essentially, I think it complements well what's in the Old Testament. The Assyrian campaign of Sennacherib is something that's well documented archaeologically through artwork and through inscriptions. And this is really a place where all these things come together. Remember those circles that Yamauchi talked about, where you have archaeological work, you have textual work, you have biblical things, where these things come together. I mean, here's a place where they all overlap. The event is mentioned in 2 Chronicles, 2 Kings, but we also have inscriptional evidence. Siloam inscription, which is in Hebrew, that's at the museum in Istanbul. The Taylor Prism, that is actually on display at the British Museum. That's an Assyrian record. So we have the biblical record, we have the local Hebrew record. The Siloam inscription was found in Hezekiah's tunnel, and then the Taylor Prism, which is an Assyrian record, and then the bas-relief, which you see a part of here. This is the bas-relief that shows Sennacherib sitting on his throne. And then, of course, we have the excavations at Lachish. So here is Siloam inscription. I won't read all this to you, but it was found in Hezekiah's tunnel. Here is a really good picture of it, even when you go see it in person. It's really hard to read the writing. You've got to get an angle light on it, and this is a pretty good photograph of it. You can see the text here. Here it is written out for you, so you can try to translate it if you can, but at least you can see what it looks like. And here's a translation of the text that you can compare with the text in the Old Testament. So I won't read all that to you. Here's Hezekiah's tunnel, where the Siloam inscription was found back in the 1880s. That's when the Ottomans controlled this territory. That's why this is in Istanbul and not Israel. And of course, the Israelis would like to have it back. Here's a cutaway of Hezekiah's tunnel. This is a tunnel that was cut as sort of an emergency because they knew the Assyrians were coming. And it's to bring water from outside of the walls to inside the walls. Here's a picture of some people inside there so you get an idea of the reference to it, or how big it is. Still standing water in there today. And as they would dig towards each other, and when they meet, they have to correct their course towards each other. Here's actually where the inscription was found. They chiseled it off the wall and took it out of there. Here's a Taylor Prism on display at the British Museum. Mentions that Hezekiah is trapped like a bird in the cage. But note that it never says he took the city, and certainly the Assyrians end up leaving, and Jerusalem holds as a free city. Here's what it says on Taylor Prism. You can read that for yourself. Continued. And then this palace at Sennacherib has the siege tower, the battering rams, sappers. Those are the guys that dig under the walls. The slingers use sling stones. You know, David's slingshot was not a toy, as we might envision it. It was a military weapon, and they did have whole divisions of that. So, and they have archers. You see the archers here shooting at each other. Then there, of course, are the excavations that took place here, where they found helmets, sling stones, gates, and artifacts. All right, so I'm going to let you look at all those things, and I'll continue this on in part B, where we'll try to finish out this discussion. All right, have a great day.